Pleasure to introduce David Lynx. He is the director of the Larson Gallery and also a longtime student of yoga, and he has many words of wisdom to share with us this morning. So everybody, please welcome David.
Is that better? Yeah. Okay. Now I can hear my echo. So I've been, a little loud, maybe. So I've been doing a lot of research lately on enlightenment. And for some crazy reason, I thought I'd get my PhD. And so, even though I don't need it, I'm just about to retire. But I'm going to do my thesis on enlightenment. And hopefully by the end of it, I'll be enlightened. So, the question, so I thought I'd bring it all and share with you what I've done so far. So the question I keep asking as I'm researching is, what is enlightenment and why do we seek it? The desire to transcend the human condition and go beyond our ordinary existence into the very essence of what we call consciousness is a deeply rooted human impulse. Enlightenment is a state of profound spiritual understanding or realization that is characterized by a deep sense of peace, joy, and freedom from suffering. Now it's interesting, this idea of suffering, because the Buddha always said, well, free you from suffering. But suffering's kind of been mistranslated. It's not really suffering. It's more like dissatisfaction. So if we're not, we may be happy, but that doesn't last very long. We're usually dissatisfied most of the time. So the idea of suffering is actually really deep in both Hinduism and Buddhism. So this idea of being able to transcend suffering or dissatisfaction is at the core of Eastern philosophy. The concept of enlightenment has been discussed in many spiritual traditions, including Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, and Sufism. While the special characteristics, you can tell this podium's a little low for me. While the special characteristics and methods for achieving enlightenment may vary between these traditions, there are some common themes that are often associated with this concept. One of the key aspects of enlightenment is the recognition of the illusory nature of the self, or the ego. This involves realizing that our sense of identity and separateness is ultimately an illusion, and that we are all interconnected and part of a larger whole. Enlightenment is also characterized by a sense of inner peace and joy that arises when we recognize our true nature. This sense of peace is said to be independent of external circumstances and can be accessed through practices such as meditation, self-inquiry, and mindfulness. These are all practices that are part of yoga, the tradition of yoga. While enlightenment is often described as a goal or a destination, it is important to note that it cannot be achieved through effort or striving. Rather, it is a natural state of being that can be accessed by letting go of our attachments and delusions, and opening ourselves to the present moment. Yoga means union. It actually comes from the word yuj Y-U-J, not H-E-G. Y-U-J in Sanskrit, which means to unite. Yoga is the union of self, meaning self I identify as, and the capital S self, the supreme, the universe, and the awareness that we are that. In Sanskrit, they say tat tvam asi, which means we are that, we are God. Supposedly, yoga is around 5,000 years old, but we don't know. It's funny, when you go back and look at history, you can interpret it from any point of view, kind of thing. So if you're a yogi and you go back in history, you can interpret from it as a yogi point of view and say it's 5,000 years old. We find the earliest mention of yoga, We find the earliest mention of yoga in the ancient scriptures from India called the Upanishads, which date back to around 800 to 500 BCE. Now, we used to say BC and AD a lot, which you all know. Often now we say BCE, which means before the Common Era or before the Christian era, and CE is the Christian era or Common Era. The Upanishads are a collection of philosophical texts that explore the nature of reality, the self, and the universe. In the Upanishads, the word yoga is used to refer to a variety of practices aimed at spiritual realization and liberation, including meditation, self-discipline, and contemplation. One of the most well-known passages that uses the word yoga is from the Katha Upanishad, which describes yoga as the union of the individual soul, which is called the Atman, and the universal soul, which is called Brahman. In Eastern philosophy, there's this thing called Advaita, which is this idea, the idea of this separation between yourself and God as two separate things. But Advaita says it's not, it's all the same thing. So this idea, this word yoga, comes from the Sanskrit word yuj, which means to unite. It actually is from the same root word that we get the word yoke from. And yoke, as you can tell, these two oxen are yoked together, so they're in union. Okay, same word. The word yoga is later used in what they call the Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita is a text that actually Gandhi read from daily. And how many of you are familiar with the Bhagavad Gita? Will? Okay. So the Bhagavad Gita, it's translated as the Song of the Lord, was written sometime between 400 BCE and 200 CE. They don't really know. A lot of these things were passed down orally, and then someone finally wrote them down. They're often in hymns, so they were sung to each other, and then they're sung to priests, and the priests passed them on. So the Bhagavad Gita is part of a much larger Hindu epic called the Mahabharata. Maha means great, Bharata is another word for India. So the Mahabharata is a story of two branches of the same family, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. It's a very long story. There's actually a really good English play version of it, which you can find. If you want to sit through, it's like 8 hours long. But I have sat through it. It's quite fascinating. There's a lot of little offshoot stories throughout the whole thing. But there's the story's really these two families, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. They're two sons of the same father, and so they've branched off, and then they've had kids and so on. So it's a very long story, and it ends up in the battlefield where one branch of the family is about to go to war with the other branch of the family. So to whoever gets the throne. The leader of the good guys is the good side of the family. Arjuna is with his charioteer Krishna at this edge of the battlefield. And so here he is Krishna's actually, he's kind of glowing. He's glowing because he's actually an avatar. An avatar is like a human representation of God on earth kind of thing. So he glows. Arjuna is the charioteer. Krishna's at the end Krishna's the charioteer, and they're at the edge of the battlefield. When Arjuna sees all of his relatives on the other side of the battlefield, he says, I can't. He lays his weapons down and says, I can't fight them. These are my uncles and my cousins and all this kind of stuff. So he says, I can't fight them. And so he asks Krishna what to do. He says, I don't know what to do. And so Krishna says, you have to do your duty and fight. And so it's interesting because the Bhagavad Gita, which is volumes and volumes and volumes, the Bhagavad Gita, this one section, is all this conversation between Arjuna and Krishna. So it's really long. And so he goes on and on about all these things he has to do, but mainly what he talks about is yoga, this idea of union. If you're in yoga, if you're in union with your spirit and with God, none of this will matter to you. So death is really an illusion, so don't worry about it. Just fight. So, which is weird, I know. But so go ahead and kill people. It's all right. So Arjuna, but this whole idea is that he talks about yoga and really this idea of union. So when you think of yoga, I'm a yoga teacher, and so you go to a yoga class and it's all about positions and all that kind of stuff. Yoga is much broader than that. So yoga really is just about getting in union with your mind, body, and soul, and in connection with spirit. So he's telling Krishna tells Arjuna to really get in this path of yoga, which is a spiritual discipline and union with the divine, that he would understand that none of this really matters. So this big war matters. They do finally go to war, and most everybody dies. But I think the good guys do win in the end. There's not very many of them left, but they do win. What's interesting is that this idea of when you're in yoga, when you're in union, that you'll eventually, as you work with yoga, you'll eventually attain liberation, or what they call moksha. And so this whole idea of enlightenment translates to a lot of different words. So moksha is this idea of liberation, freedom, that you'll be free from suffering. You'll be free from all of this. And it's just another way to say enlightenment. There's a lot of words that mean enlightenment. So sometime then, after that, they were not sure when this was actually written, the Mahabharata, comes along this guy. And so somewhere between the 2nd century BCE and the 4th century CE, there was a sage called Patanjali. He wrote these things called the Yoga Sutras. Now, sutras is an interesting word because we get the same word suture, like if you're going in and you get sutured up. From it actually means thread, okay? So sutures, the Yoga Sutras were threads, or they're precepts, they're poems, hymns that you would read. So these are instructions. And he wrote these sutras. See, now I'm getting mixed up. So Patanjali, they thought that they'd probably been around for a long time, and Patanjali just decided to write them all down, okay? And these are really meant for yogis, ascetics, who sat out for a long time. Originally in yoga, there was one posture, and that was sitting. So for hundreds and hundreds of years, you sat, okay? And then it wasn't until the 15th, 16th century that they started developing up to 15 positions. And then by the end of the 1800s, they had 225 positions. So if you come to my class, you can do 200. No, we do about 20 in my class or so. So Patanjali wrote down these sutras. Primarily, the one position was, again, sitting. So the reason that Patanjali is shown like this is that supposedly there's kind of a sacred story behind it. Obviously, he was some sage that wrote all this stuff down, but then they developed this whole kind of sacred story around him, where Vishnu's up in heaven, and Vishnu usually sits on a snake. And so Vishnu, they all have animals kind of associated with them, the deities. And he sat on the snake, and he was, this snake was performing for him or dancing for him, and he wanted to learn how to get better at dancing and pleasing Vishnu. So he decides to come down to earth and falls into the hands of a yogi, or yogini, we call it a woman yogi, and as a little baby snake, and then he turns into a baby. So Patanjali actually means, Anjali means folded hands, Pata means fallen. So he fell in, and so he's got a little snake body on the bottom of him, which is kind of fun. So Patanjali, breaks down these, I don't know if you can see that very well. Can you? Yeah. Patanjali breaks down yoga into 8 branches. Now, positions are only just one of those branches. So we've got all these other branches to go through. And if you're a yogi, you practice these. So they're not like commandments, you have to do these things. But they're like, oh, I'll try a little bit of that and a little bit of that and see if I can get any better kind of thing. So if I can reach enlightenment eventually. So what he comes up in these 8 branches are he talks about yamas, which is, you'll see on the left side, which are social behaviors. These are universal guidelines for engaging with other people. So one of the things is ahimsa, which is practicing nonviolence. And actually there's some of these tie up with the commandments in the Bible. So practicing nonviolence is thou shalt not kill in a way. So some of these are very kind of common sense things. Practicing nonviolence is also to be nonviolent to yourself, so taking care of yourself. He talks about satya, which is another yama, speaking truthfully, always making sure that you're aware of what you're saying. Brahmacharya means having appropriate relationships. It used to mean being celibate and being a monk, but they've kind of changed that. You don't have to do that anymore. And then asteya, which means being honest, and parigraha, which means to be generous. So these are ways of acting with other people. He also came up with a branch called the niyamas, which are personal behaviors. So he encourages in the niyamas shaucha, which is purity. And purity is really about everything you do, everything you eat to make sure it's pure food. The music you listen to is pure music, the smells you have around your house to be. That's why people like essential oils and stuff like that. So things that are pure. Then he comes up with santosha, which is to be content, to try to be content most of the time. Tapas, which he calls discipline. Discipline really is more like, I always kind of think of it as setting a schedule for yourself. So I get up at 6, I do this, setting a kind of a regular habits of things. Yoga is a discipline. Svadhyaya, which is spiritual exploration. What I try to do every night is read something spiritual before I go to bed. So keep training yourself, keep getting more knowledge. And then the final niyama is what they call Ishwara Pranidhana, which really means surrendering to the divine. So just surrender. Everything will be all right. So that's the branch 1 and branch 2, the social behaviors and personal behaviors. The third branch is asana. So asana just means posture, and you're all doing asana as we speak. You're sitting. So again, there was one posture, and now there's a lot of postures. So if you go to a yoga class, you're going to primarily do asana. Page. Then we get into pranayama, which is breath control. Okay, so pranayama. I'd like to do some of these with you. We're going to do a little practicing with you today. So pranayama is, we're getting up to the 5th branch. I think the 4th branch, pranayama, which is breath control. And so a lot of these, I want to think when I first started yoga, I wouldn't be able to stay balanced. I'd fall over a lot. And I was realizing I was holding my breath the whole time. So you have to breathe. But let's try a little breath control practice, breathing practice. So if you have your feet flat on the floor, and what we're going to do is what we call 4-part breathing. And what we do is we'll breathe in for 4 counts. We're going to hold it for 4 counts, breathe out for 4 counts, and then hold it out for 4 counts. Okay? So let's first take a deep breath in and exhale out. Okay, then we're going to breathe in for 4 counts. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold it out, 2, 3, 4, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold it out, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you can breathe normally. Did you feel some quieting down? I did. So this is like breath practice. So all this is really getting into this idea of self-realization. So yoga is really about self-realization. Next branch, pratyahara. This is a really interesting thing. It's about kind of inner awareness of your inner senses. So there's a kind of a fun practice to do with this too, to kind of get you an idea. So if I could have you close your eyes just for a moment. It's a little pratyahara exercise. So imagine the sound of a church bell. Imagine the sound of the crashing waves. The feel of a baby's skin. The taste of a ripe strawberry. The taste of a jalapeno pepper. The feel of cold snow. The taste of chocolate ice cream. Okay, let's open our eyes. So you have these inner senses, these memories inside. So pratyahara is really about bringing those senses inward, okay? So you're preparing, all these things are preparing yourself and for the next part, which is the mastery of intention, which is dharana. This is another interesting thing, is that where our energy, where our attention goes, our energy flows. And so if you put your attention on something, your energy is going to flow there. So I think kind of a good example of this, say someone invites you to a party and you're like, I don't want to go to that party, so-and-so's going to be there, I'm going to hate it, and I don't want to go, and all that kind of stuff. And so you kind of get set on this pattern that I know what's going to happen. And so you really need to know that any possibility can happen. So don't put your attention, or put your attention on the things that are really important, kind of thing. So you could go to the party there and Brad Pitt's there and he wants you to be in his next movie. So you never know what could happen. So you put your attention on things and just let go. This is another idea of surrendering. So this whole idea of putting your attention on things. And I think you do that probably, your intentions and your attention on things a lot. And those come to fruition. They bear fruit. So then we're up to the seventh branch, which is meditation. And so I like to do a meditation with you. I'm not sure I'm watching my time. So again, I always like to say, when you're doing meditations, it's best not to lay down. It's best to sit in a chair, but be as comfortable as you can. If you have to pile pillows around you, do that. Meditation should be comfortable. And if you're doing that, if it's comfortable, you're going to want to do it more often. So we'll do a short meditation here. So again, let's just close our eyes. Take a deep breath in. Exhale out. Now, before we begin our meditation, let's ask ourselves a few questions. These are not, you don't need to know the answer to these questions. Just let go and let the universe work out the details. So let's ask ourselves these few questions. Who am I? Who am I? You may not know the answer to these questions, but this is a good time to work out this dialogue with the universe. Who am I? What do I want? What do I really, really want? The answers could be ethereal, physical, spiritual. What do I really want? What am I grateful for? What am I grateful for? Now take a deep breath in and exhale out. Let go and let the universe work out the details. Now as you breathe in, we're going to think the sound so. As you breathe out, think the sound hum. So breathe in, so. Breathe out, hum. Breathe in, so. Just like you're listening to it in the distance. Let's do this for a minute. Just keep thinking so, hum. You can stop repeating so hum. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So the last branch is what Patanjali calls samadhi, which is being in bliss. So state of bliss. So all these words, moksha, liberation, enlightenment, bliss, all kind of are the same thing. So through these practices, we did a couple of these practices today. I'd have you do yoga, but you'd probably hit your head on your chair. We did a few of these practices today, and that's so if you're practicing yogi and you do these regularly, you kind of move towards this point of enlightenment. So as you practice this Eightfold Path, you'll get there. You can just take, it's not a sequential thing. You can do one thing or the other thing anytime you want. So it's not that you're going to actually reach this crescendo, like boom, okay, I'm enlightened. But you actually just are always just getting lighter, you know. So in yoga and any spiritual discipline is really about taking you more inward to understand and appreciate your own inner extraordinary nature. And so this idea of enlightenment really is understanding yourself. Okay, I was inspired by this hanging over here because saw that you had the chakras, and I had them up on the slide today. So I thought it was a sign. So I want to do a chakra tuning with you. Okay, I don't know if I've done this with you before, but I'm going to move this aside up for a little bit. So this is kind of a fun thing to do, and after you're all done, you feel really good. So we have like 100 chakras are kind of like energy centers. It usually meant like a spinning disc or spinning ball, and we have hundreds of chakras in our body. There's 7 major chakras that lead from the base of the spine up to the top of the head, and you can see on that chart, on the thing back here and up here, that we use color to identify each of the chakras, bringing awareness to each one of the chakras. We're also today going to use sound, okay? And sound's very healing and has a lot of vibration to it. If you just put your hand on your neck for just a moment and just hum, feel the vibration, okay? So we're going to use vibration and light and color to bring awareness to each one of the chakras, and trust me, you'll feel really good after you do it. Okay, I'm just going to sit down here so that I can do it a little bit better, like you. Okay, so we're going to do it again in a comfortable position, and close your eyes, and we're going to bring our awareness to the base of our spine. This is the Muladhara chakra, where we feel grounded and stable. Think or visualize a beautiful red light filling this area. The sound of the Muladhara chakra is Lam. So after I say let's take a deep breath in together, we're going to do the sound of Lam together. All the sounds end with a M sound, so they get this really good vibration. Okay? So bringing your awareness to the base of your spine, visualize a beautiful red light filling this area, and the sound is Lam. So let's take a deep breath in and do the sound. Take a deep breath in. Good. Bringing your awareness to the second chakra, the Svanisada chakra, above the root, below the navel. This is your creativity chakra. The sound of the Muladhara chakra is Vam. Imagine a beautiful yellow light, or orange light, filling this area. And the sound is Vam. Take a deep breath in. Vam. And bringing your awareness to your solar plexus, the Manipura chakra. Imagine or visualize a beautiful yellow light filling this area like the sun. This is your creativity chakra. The sound of this chakra is Ram. So let's take a deep breath in together. Ram. Bring your awareness to your heart center, the Anahata chakra, where love and compassion reside. Think or visualize a beautiful green light filling this area, and the sound is Yam. Take a deep breath in. Yam. Bringing your awareness to your throat chakra, where we express ourselves. Think or visualize a beautiful blue light like the ocean filling this area, and the sound is Hum. Take a deep breath in. Hum. Bringing your awareness to the center of your forehead, the Ajna chakra, where knowledge and intuition reside. Think or visualize a beautiful indigo light filling this area, and the sound is Sham. Take a deep breath in. Sham. awareness to the crown of your head, the Sahasrara chakra, where we connect with the universe. Think or visualize a beautiful violet light filling this area, or a 1,000-petaled lotus, and the sound is the universal sound of Om. Take a deep breath in. You can open your eyes. Y'all feel a little lighter? Thank you very much for having me here today. Thank you.
As our musicians come forward, let's take a moment to bless our speaker. We love you, we bless you, and we appreciate you just the way you are. And let's bless each other. We love you, we bless you,